So welcome to AP European History with Dr. Brovkin. Today our topic is the Revolution of 1848, specifically in Germany, but also I'll make some generalizations about the revolution as a whole. So this is the main point. Now, the best way to start it is from the end, which is that, as you know, Revolution of 1848 is usually considered as a failed revolution. And that's true when we look at the political map of Europe. Just about everywhere there was a violent upheaval, and there was a success to a certain point, and then it all kind of dialed down, fizzled out, and things were as they were. But the main point, it was not like it was before. Nothing really is ever like it was before. And the best way to describe it, I think it's from the words of Rolling Stones song. You can't always get what you want. So that's the point. You can't always get what you want. If we look at what they wanted and what they got something but never got what they want. And I think this is the best way to summarize 1848. Nowhere did they get what they wanted, but what's important is that they wanted it, and that they will get it later on. So this is how I want to structure it. Let's figure out what exactly did they and who they, the people, want in Rome, in Berlin. I want to establish what exactly did they and who they want, how much of what they wanted they got, how much was rolled back, and then was there follow-up. In other words, when did they get what they want? And I'll start with Germany. Now, obviously, the difficult thing about 1848 is that so many things are happening at the same time. This is why it's such a complex topic, because you could always get stuck in endless details, and these details are important, because if we look at every city, there's a kaleidoscope of events. It's virtually impossible to remember. And it's all happening at the same time. If we make a kind of a line of events, March, February, March, June, July, 1848, in Paris, in Berlin, in Rome, in Palermo, in Brussels, in London, in Budapest, in Vienna, it will be virtually impossible to keep track of it, because it just so much is happening at the same time. The peak, it seems to be, is the spring of 1848. This is where most dramatic events are happening, in a sense of street battles, demonstrations, barricades, shootings. Hundreds of people get killed at some point or another. If we look at the battles in Dresden, or in Berlin, or in Paris, for that matter, or in Rome, you actually have violent revolution that is unfolding. So this is what makes it outwardly very different and very complex, because the dynamic of events is everywhere a little bit different. But if we look at what actually is happening, it's pretty much the same thing. What is it? It's what Karl Marx called class struggle. So who is struggling for what? I would put it like this. Just about everywhere you have the conservative forces, which would be the kings, their entourage, the ruling class, the nobles, the aristocracy, sometimes would be business classes, those that are privileged elites, those that do have political power in one way or another. The most conservatives would be people like Metternich in Vienna, who is running away, would be the Prussian king and his ministers, who would be scared of the revolution, and it would be going on all over Germany. It would be really just everywhere. If you could, province by province, in Saxony, in Baden, in Württemberg, in Bavaria, in Rhineland, you have revolution all over the place. In Italy, it's just boiling over, from Rome to Sicily to Milan, everywhere. In France as well, and of course in London, it comes pretty close to revolution with the Chartist movement. So if we look at who is the forces of order, this would be the forces of order. In England, it would be also the powers that be, those that control the parliament, the big bourgeoisie in Marxist terms, and the landowners. Okay, who is on the other side of the barricades? And these were the people who are a combination of what would later be called patriots, liberals, and socialists. And I think this is crucial to understand the 1848 revolution, is that these are forces that are together, that potentially they will all go their separate ways. But what's the unique and incredible feature of the revolution of 1848 is that nationalists or patriots, the people who are for the nation, for the unity of Italy, for the unification of Germany, people who are for the Grand Nation Paris, they are in Poland, I mean in Hungary, the people who are patriots and liberals and who are for social justice, they are all in the same boat. They are on the same side of the barricades. So from that point of view, it's a pan-European revolution for national liberation or national consolidation. In the case of Hungary, it's national liberation. In the case of Germany, it's national consolidation, unification. In the case of Italy, unification. And in some areas, you have patriotic agenda that dominates the show, and in some places, it is the social justice agenda that dominates the show. And I would put it like this: in Paris, the national agenda is already resolved. It is a Grand Nation. It is there. What is the agenda? It's social justice. It is national workshops. For the first time, the government actually takes care of the unemployed. In London, it's the social agenda. It is the demands of the Chartists. And the demands of the Chartists are the same as they would be in London, as they would be in Rome, and they would be in Berlin. And that is social justice, 8-hour day, direct elections of the legislature. This is why the Chartists, even though it's not called a revolution, it is a revolutionary agenda that would be that could be found anywhere else in Europe in 1848. So that makes it actually quite simple. Even though the dynamics of events is different, the dates of the uprisings are different, the response of the powers that be is somewhat different, but it is actually quite the same. Everywhere, the ruling classes fight back. They don't want to concede these reforms, or that they pretend that they do. And then as soon as a chance comes up, they actually don't. Or they rely on foreign troops, such as, in Vienna, they rely on Russian troops to suppress the revolution in Hungary. In Rome, the national traitors, such as the Pope, rely on the French to suppress the revolution, and of course in Germany it is the Prussian troops that would quell down the revolution in Berlin. So you have actually a class struggle in the purest and direct sense. People are on the barricades. They are actually fighting, shooting, and dying in their hundreds in Berlin, and in Dresden, and in Paris, and in Budapest, and in Rome, and in Naples. So from that point of view, all of these revolutions are violent upheavals against the powers that be. For, one more time, for national liberation or national consolidation, for direct elections of the legislature, free and fair elections, which actually means liberty, and free of the press, also liberty, the liberal agenda, and social justice, which means socialism. So you have here nationalism in the form of patriotism, liberty in the form of direct elections, and social justice in the form of 8-hour day and good labor compensation as articulated by the chart. So what do they want? This is what they want. Do they get it? No, they don't. They don't get it. But it's not over. It's just temporarily suppressed. But it's going to explode in their face even harder 20 years later or so, in terms of unification of Italy through a revolution and diplomacy, through the unification of Germany through diplomacy and war, and through the painful process of reform, where in the end, the Chartist agenda will be implemented, but much, much later, which again illustrates Karl Marx's thesis. It's class struggle, and only in class struggle will you get it. Long and tedious struggle over many decades until the British workers are going to get 8-hour day and social justice. But now let me talk a little bit about specifically in Germany, because it is a central piece of 1848 revolutions, and it's crucial for understanding how things are going to develop later. You can't always get what you want, but we do understand what they want and when and how they'll get it. So revolutionary Germany is the same pattern as everywhere else. You have mass rebellion in March in Berlin, and then you look at all over Germany, and it goes everywhere. It goes in Westphalia, and it's also direct elections that they want to Prussian Diet, and in Saxony, in Dresden, violent rebellion, and of course in Vienna, although it's sort of Austria, but it still is considered Germany, and in Baden, which is where Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels are young people who are beginning to publish Neue Rheinische Zeitung, and this is the first experience of Karl Marx in journalism that would lead to a formulation of an extremely important document, the Communist Manifesto, direct result of the activities in 1848. But in Berlin, it's where it really is crucial, because in Berlin, the king is scared, and he pretends like he's with the revolution. It's kind of like if Macron comes out with the Gilets jaunes. He's sort of pretending like they agreed to have new elections to the Diet, to the Parliament, free and fair elections, and freedom of the press. So at this stage, he's kind of acting as if he's with the revolution, because if he had tried to stop it, he would be smashed. But he is acting as if he is with the revolution, and he grants these free elections. And the next stage is elections, and you have two parallel elections. On the one hand, you have elections to the Prussian Diet. On the other hand, you have even more important elections that are all German elections, and that's crucial, because you do have elections to the so-called Frankfurt Parliament, and that is the first attempt to create a national parliament elected by direct male suffrage of all Germans from all German provinces. This is the reason it's so incredibly important, is because it shows that Germany is already one country, where elections take place peacefully, despite all these different dukes and archdukes and kings and various provinces. It is one political place, and is one social place, and they do want elections to an all German parliament. They want unification. They want consolidation. They want social justice, and they want liberty. Same agenda as everybody else, but in Germany, the most important agenda is unify Germany into one country. So they meet, and they sit there for almost a year, from May 48 to May 49. And what do? They are trying to resolve, how can you unify Germany? Well, there are two ways. Either you proclaim a republic, and then you have to overthrow all these kings and dukes, which they're scared to do, because they're wealthy people. They are for proper procedures. They're not, they're not into violence, and they just want to avoid somehow. So there's a second alternative, and that's constitutional monarchy. It's the same kind of a decision as we discussed the Decembrists in Russia had to face: a republic or a constitutional monarchy. They voted for constitutional monarchy, and then the monarch shot them and destroyed them. And this is what pretty much is going to happen with the Frankfurt Parliament. They decide to constitutional monarchy. Who is going to be the monarch? Another tough decision. Well, again, they have a choice. They either can offer to Habsburgs, the emperor, well, no longer an emperor, but the traditional emperors before it was disbanded, or to the Hohenzollern, that is the king of Prussia. The reality is that Prussia is the dominant power in Germany. Already this can be seen. This is a reality, and they do offer the crown to Frederick William, the King of Prussia. So it seems like it's done. I mean, they made all the decisions. They have elections. They have popular sovereignty. They have the support of the German people. And the revolution has succeeded. And the king acts as if he is with the revolution. So he says, that all he has to do is say, yes, I will be a king of all Germany. And you know what? The most amazing thing happens. He says, no, I don't want to. I mean, that's just a total knockout. And then they don't know what to do, these revolutionaries. Now, what they could have done, what could have they done? They could have said, okay, you know what? Thank you very much. We proclaim a republic. But you have to have the guts to do that. Why did he say no? This is another very interesting one. He says, these are his words, I don't want the crown from the gutter. The gutter means from dirt. In other words, the people for them are the dirt. He does not accept popular sovereignty. He does not accept the idea that we are the people, we are the power. In other words, he believes in divine right. I mean, that's the middle of the 19th century, and you have a king who still believes that the only legitimate power is from other kings. So it's like Metternich all over again. It's like Congress of Vienna all over again. You have a king who refuses to see the reality that these days are gone, and he says, no, I can only legitimately claim power over Germany if it is offered to me by German kings and princes and dukes and others. Traditional approach, like a German diet, as if he's in the 1500s back again, when the elections of Charles V. So he refuses. And then he shows his real colors, and they usurp power in the Prussian Diet, and they change the law from universal suffrage to a controlled legislature, and he rolls back the revolution, and everything is back as if it were before 1848. But you can't always get what you want, but you get something. And what do you get? You get an idea of united Germany. It becomes possible. See, that the most important consequence for Germany of 1848 is people realized it can be done. We almost did it. Moreover, it scares the hell out of the ruling classes because not only it can be done, it can be done from below, from the revolution from below. Anyway, what is more scary is the Communist Manifesto, where it says that the ghost of communism is scaring the ruling classes, and there's going to be class struggle, and what we will get on the barricades. So in other words, even though the revolution failed, it's not really a failure, but it's a retreat that's going to have an advance 20 years later by other forms, by other means. But the Germans are going to get consolidated Germany. The Italians are going to get an Italian republic, constitutional monarchy at this point. And that the workers will take another 40 years, but they will get 8-hour day and social services. And in Germany, quicker than anywhere else. Okay, and on that note, my dear boys and girls, we finish. And tell your friends to subscribe to AP European History with Dr. Brovkin.